Welcome back to my channel. Today is a little bit crazy in my household. We've got the baby running around. We've got my husband working on music with his friends. So there's a lot of background noise and I apologize for that. But I wanted to get a video done because I was inspired by so many questions asking me if I'm still breastfeeding, what breastfeeding was like for me, etc., etc. So I wanted to do a video touching on the subject and walk you through my breastfeeding journey from top to finish. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the idea of breastfeeding. I knew it was something I wanted to try because I just wanted to. I understood that there were definitely health benefits to breastfeeding that I respected. I know my mom breastfed all of us kids, so it was just something I had in my head like, okay, I'll try it, but I'm not gonna hold myself to it. If I'm not comfortable with it, then that's fine. You know, fed is best, so whatever goes. My first week after giving birth, my milk actually wasn't coming in, and that was one of my biggest struggle periods throughout my breastfeeding journey. I didn't have a lot of issues with cracked, bleeding, painful nipples, which I was really relieved about because I had all of the ointments and everything like ready to go. Luckily for me, that was never an issue at all, but my milk did take a long time to come in, which made it a little bit frustrating, not just on me, but on baby, of course, who was very hungry. And ultimately, it showed me how badly I did want to breastfeed all of a sudden. I wanted to do whatever it took to get my milk production going, and I wanted to share that breastfeeding bond with my baby. It was something I was actually instantly comfortable with once I tried it. So hey, there you go. You never know until you try. And it was just something that all of a sudden became important to me. Again, I knew that if my milk didn't come in, that would be okay. I wasn't gonna like put too much pressure on myself or feel like I failed because my body didn't want to kick into gear. But luckily, I was presented with options at the hospital from a few nurses. One of them told me that I had the option of formula feeding while I continued to pump to try to get my milk to come in naturally, or I could use the SNS system. The SNS system is basically a little tiny feeding tube that you attach to your nipple, and it feeds the baby formula while they're still sucking on your breast, so that helps stimulate your own natural milk production. It was a pain in the butt, and it did get a little bit expensive because you have to constantly buy new parts to use the system. You can't sterilize these pieces. You have to buy new gear. You can only use them a certain amount of times. But that pain in the butt and money spent only lasted a couple of weeks because this system really did help my milk come in. When your baby's first born, you feel like a cow anyway. I definitely struggled with that feeling of like, I am just a milk machine. Like, this bond is still forming, and I just feel like I can't sleep because I'm constantly feeding. I was feeding on demand. I think it's pretty common to feel like a little used up at one point or another, and that in and of itself can be emotionally exhausting. So then on top of that, to have to tape this tube to you and clean it in the middle of the night feeds when you're doing them like every 3 to 4 hours, it's a lot on your plate. And I'm not saying that that option is for everyone. I'm sure it would have been easier to, you know, pump and just formula feed out of bottles. But you know what? That takes extra time too. So to each their own. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned the SNS system in this video because I think it was a huge component of my breastfeeding journey and ultimately my breastfeeding success. And I don't think a lot of women know about that option. The nurse almost didn't even present it to me when she was telling me about what options I had when my milk didn't come in because so few women choose it. She said, you know, it's a hassle, it's this, it's that, it gets a little bit expensive, so a lot of women don't go for that. This is what you can do instead. I'm so glad that I opted to try it because I think having the baby's saliva intermix with your system automatically lets your body know what the baby needs. So that actual sucking motion, which is totally different from a pumping motion from a machine, definitely let my body know, okay girl, it's time to kick it into gear, like let's get that milk dropped down. Once my milk came in fully, it was pretty smooth sailing for us. I luckily only got engorged a couple of times. That was easily alleviated by breastfeeding or pumping. I never had mastitis, so I was so terrified that I would get it, but I have heard that in those situations, a hot shower, massage, cabbage cabbage leaves are options that can help you. I pretty much exclusively breastfed for the first 4 months of Bowie's life, to be honest, because I couldn't be bothered to deal with pumping and cleaning the pump parts and the bottles and sterilizing the bottles and all of that stuff. It was just way easier for me to like bring a nursing cover out with me and just pop my boob out whenever I needed to. It was purely for convenience that I decided to exclusively breastfeed. And then around 4 months, when we wanted to start leaving the house more and taking Bowie out and about with us, I thought it was important to start pumping so that I could have bottles with her when it just wasn't convenient to stop and breastfeed. I could still push her around in the stroller and be feeding her the bottle. So it did make life a little easier at that point to start pumping as well. Again, luckily for us, Bowie took the bottle no problem, and I did use Dr. Brown's options, which have this little vent system that's supposed to be helpful for gas and colic, but also it slows the flow to kind of mimic the breastfeeding sensation. So it'll help transition your kids to and from breastfeeding and bottle back and forth seamlessly. And that did totally work for us. Bowie loved her bottle, but she loved going back on the boob, no problem. When I spoke to my pediatrician about when a good time to stop was, she said if you can make it to 6 months, that's ideal. She will pretty much have gotten all the nutrients that she needs within that first 6 months of breastfeeding. And at that point, it's really up to you if you want to continue on or not. I was starting to leave the house a lot more for auditions and for work, and I didn't want to leave my husband or our part-time nanny feeling stranded if there was no breast milk in the fridge. So I thought it was important to introduce formula at that point. So at 6 months, pretty much on the dot, I decided to stop breastfeeding. And when I did, I was so nervous for what the whole milk drying up process would be. I even had a green cabbage in my fridge ready to go because I had heard an old wives' tale that if you put green cabbage leaves in your bras, it helps the milk dry up. But I never needed it because my milk was gone within days. I had one last bout of engorgement, and with one pump, that was kind of it. It never came back. My boobs totally deflated, which I was really sad about, but that was it. It was gone. My breastfeeding journey as I knew it was over. The whole process of weaning Bowie off of the boob was a lot easier because I had introduced bottles for the past 2 months. So I just made sure that in the last week of my breastfeeding, I was introducing more bottles more frequently and breastfeeding less and less. As I said, I think that gradual departure from breastfeeding helped me with my milk drying up and not having any major engorgement issues or mastitis or anything like that. So at about 6 months and 2 weeks, I went for a pediatrician appointment, Bowie's 6-month-ish checkup, and the doctor was like, so are you still breastfeeding? And I said, no, I stopped at 6 months because that's what we had talked about. And she was like, oh, actually, it's best if you can keep 1 breast milk bottle per day until they're a year. A year? What are you talking about, lady? You said 6 months. Obviously, I did not say this to her, but that's exactly what I was thinking in my head, because all of a sudden I had this major mom guilt of like, oh my God, I am not gonna be able to give my daughter the nutrients she actually needs for a year because I listened to her the first time and didn't do my own research and just stopped breastfeeding at 6 months, and now my milk was completely gone. I did read online that it's possible to relactate and it involves pumping a lot and whatever, but like I said, my boobs were completely deflated. Like there was no way there was gonna be milk coming back into those things until baby number 2. So I just kind of swallowed that pill, which was tough. I was a bit of an emotional mess for a couple of weeks dealing with that guilt and feeling like I had failed her in some way and I should have done my own research. That was my lesson that I learned the hard way. So please, please do that. Learn from my mistakes. Obviously have a pediatrician that you trust and you listen to, but do your own research on the side as well, no matter how much you trust them, because had I done that, I probably would have seen those fun facts and just continued on breastfeeding, or at least pumping 1 bottle a day for the duration of the year. C'est la vie. I can't go back in time. I don't have a time machine, but definitely ended on a more sour note than I had hoped. I think I was always going to be emotional about stopping because I actually fell in love with the breastfeeding process far more than I had ever imagined. I loved it, and I can't wait to do it again with baby number 2 whenever that day comes. I'm in no rush for that. But I guess the takeaway from this video for for anybody watching is, you know, don't knock it till you try it. If you're uncomfortable or have reservations about breastfeeding, then I urge you to just give it a shot, see if it's for you. And if it's not, that's totally okay too, because I do believe that fed is best. So do what's right for you, your baby, and your lifestyle, your family. I respect all parents' decisions and choices. I say that in all of these videos because I think it's just so important for other moms to hear. I do not do mom shaming. There is no right way to parent. If you're struggling with milk production in the beginning, then I definitely urge you to try the SNS system because it worked wonders for us. And I know it was a bit of a pain in the butt and a few extra dollars, but that part only really lasts for a couple of weeks. So I think it's definitely well worth it. And when it comes to how long you're gonna breastfeed for, do your homework and decide on a time that's right for you. You know, my mom, back in the day, you know, maternity leave was only 4 months. So we were all breastfed, but we were only breastfed for 4 months because then my mom had to go back to work. 6 months is what worked for us because that's when I started to kind of pick up work a lot more outside of the house. So that's what made sense for my lifestyle and my family. And if you want to breastfeed for 2 years, like, high five to you, that's awesome. I just wanted to share what my breastfeeding experience was because I get asked about it so often. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel and I will see you in the next one. Bye, mamas.